Imagine you decide to package what you already know into a $7 Canva PDF, and it turns into a $35,000 per month business that you can run from anywhere in the world, working about 4 hours a day, 4 days a week. If you had asked me that question when I was laying on the court with a blown out knee on ESPN, or while I was pacing the hallways of a cancer ward waiting for results from the doctor to let me know how my brother was doing, I would have thought you were speaking another language to someone from another planet. But that's my story. And I couldn't see the path from having no idea how I would build financial freedom after my basketball career ended to how I would end up with location freedom, time freedom, and financial freedom in a business that has been consistently making $35,000 per month and might crack $45,000 per month in just a couple of days when this month ends and all of the final numbers are in. But my hope is that if I walk you through the 4 stages that I went through, you'll more clearly see your own journey to the life of your dreams and therefore be able to move through it faster and with fewer mistakes. If you're new to the channel, by the way, my name is Lili, and this is the story of how I built financial freedom. My entire life, I was a really good student. I enjoyed school, but basketball and sports were absolutely my focus. And so I was really fortunate to get a scholarship to Stanford to play undergrad and to Notre Dame to play 1 year of extra eligibility that I had while getting my master's degree. Both schools I got degrees from in business, and I really just did it because I liked business, but my number one plan was to go to the WNBA and try to make money through that, through NIL, through sponsorships, and go that route. Then maybe after I was done playing, I would invest the money I made and go on a business journey then. But it wasn't to be. My very last season of college basketball ended with an ACL tear on national television on New Year's Eve, and I had no more eligibility left, and that was it for me in college basketball. I thought that I would work my way back and maybe make the next WNBA draft the following year, and in the meantime, I got the opportunity to work with the Harlem Globetrotters, rehab my knee, and do their media and PR while traveling the world. It was absolutely awesome, and it was during that time that I first picked up the camera and started making YouTube content. My first 4 videos were absolutely all over the place. I made this video about my plan to become a professional golfer as my second sport and how I was training for that. This one about bullet journaling. This one about how I was leaving the Harlem Globetrotters. And this one kind of telling the story of why. At that time, the only way that I could really describe it was wanting to live a good life, wanting to live the life of my dreams that I kind of determined was going to be a combination of growth, health, and wealth. One of my biggest goals in life is to support myself and my family financially through my own businesses and through passive income. So I set off on this financial freedom journey, and I knew that it would take some time to build. So while I was with the Globetrotters, I was traveling about 80% of the time. Like, it was just an insane amount of travel. And we got per diem for every single meal. And of course, my hotels were paid for. So I really didn't have many expenses. And I just stacked almost an entire year worth of salaries in my savings. And this was also during the time where I had my first real business idea. I've talked about this in the past and how trying to sell online basketball training to high schoolers pre-2020 was absolutely a failed business, but it gave me my chance to make my first ever digital product. But unfortunately, I made no money on it because I spent weeks and weeks and weeks working on it. When I finally uploaded it onto Skillshare, which was the platform I had decided I was going to sell it on, I found out that at that time, at least, you couldn't do courses on sports or any type of physical training on that platform. And I was just absolutely devastated, and I didn't know any other way to get it out to the world. And that dream died, and then the pandemic hit. And so my content shifted from golf and my basketball course to the other thing I was focusing on at the time, which was real estate. Now, I knew next to nothing about real estate, only the quote that says like 90% of all millionaires get there through real estate investing. And I was like, sounds good enough for me. So I said that I would make 100 real estate offers and 100 videos before I quit either one. And my early videos were really, really basic. The first 2 that did pretty well were these ones about vocab words that new investors should know. And then I was also documenting the hunt for my very first duplex that I was planning to house hack, which means I would live in one unit and rent out the other so that my living expenses would be covered and I could live for free. Once I got a taste of that first property, I wanted more. And so I started looking for my very first wholesale deal and sharing that story. And that's where the $7 digital product comes in. I made 2 products actually. The first one was a resource pack with a template for making offers and a script that I would use to talk to real estate agents when I called them. And and I gave that away for free. And then on the thank you page of that offer, I had the $7 product, which was what I called a get started guide. And it was a $7 7-page PDF that I created on Canva, walking people through how to start their own wholesaling journey. As I continued to learn more, I posted more videos. I thought this combination was funny, where I got my first contract and then subsequently turned around and lost it because I just made a rookie mistake. But I kept showing what I was doing, the tools that I was using, and how I was managing my first rental property, the house hack that I was living in. And I didn't know a ton here, and I only had that one property. And this is where the first big lesson comes in, because I think a lot of people chase opportunities, and I was absolutely chasing an opportunity because wholesaling was this big thing. 2020 was a great time for interest rates and real estate investing, and so that's where my attention went. It could have very easily went to drop shipping or cryptocurrency or affiliate marketing, any of the opportunities that those of us who want to make progress but don't know where to start oftentimes look at. But when I made this $7 product, it was the first step of no longer chasing an opportunity and instead chasing value, like making myself more valuable. And although it was just $7, which was all I was comfortable selling something for at the time, because it was packaging what I was doing every day, learning and documenting the mistakes and the good things and putting it into an easily accessible resource, people were happy. And I had less than a 0.5% refund rate on the product. And I can't remember exactly how many I sold, but I think over the course of time, I made around $20,000 on this product. And my editor can put a screenshot from the payment processor that I was using at the time. I consider this as the end of stage one. I had about $300 extra per month coming in from my rental property, the one that I was house hacking, living in one unit and renting out the other one. And I was making around 50 to 100 sales a month of that $7 digital product from people who watched my YouTube content, got my free resource, and then decided to purchase that $7 product. So all in all, that was another $350 to $700 per month from the $7 product. So in total, I was making basically about $1K per month. But remember, I was living for free in a property that I owned, and I'd saved pretty much everything I made from the Harlem Globetrotters. So I knew I had a little bit of runway to make this work. And that was another big lesson from stage one, because something that I'm sure we've all seen happen on the internet is people will comment on videos and say why that's not possible for the average person, or why the average person couldn't follow that exact path. Something I forgot to say when I was recording this video, but is also really important. So hi, this is Lili from the future. You don't want to be average. And that I know that because you're watching this video. So you're probably trying to build a business to give yourself some type of lifestyle, time freedom, location freedom, financial freedom that the average person doesn't have. And so when you see a path and you see what somebody's doing and you say that's not possible for the average person, you are right. Now you just have to decide, do you want to be average, or are you willing to do things that the average person maybe is not willing to or not able to do given their current circumstances? Are you willing to create the circumstances under which you can escape being average? Because you're right, the average person can't do the things that lead to an extraordinary life unless they do the things that lead to an extraordinary life, which therefore means they're not average. Like, everybody's gonna make a different path through the world. Everybody has different resources, different pros and cons to how they're trying to build things. And I think the mindset that you have to see an example of your exact path in order to feel like this is possible for me is just setting yourself up for failure. Because what happens if you don't run into somebody who has the exact set of resources and the exact struggles that you do? If you are only ever looking for the reason why something won't work for you, then you'll just keep finding reasons why something won't work. But making content kind of forced me to create my own path, even though I saw other people who were doing similar things like Jerry Norton and Max Maxwell, and I admired them for what they were doing. And to some extent, I was trying to copy how they were doing it. I had a complete different set of resources. I was a beginner. I was just at the start of my journey, and they were already have, hundreds, thousands of deals under their belt. But I think the big takeaway is just like, you're not looking for someone who's doing the exact same thing that you're doing. You're really just looking for proof that you're on the right track. And then as you go down that track, you figure it out yourself and you make your own journey and your own decisions based on the resources you have and the resources that you don't. So that said, stage one lasted for about 9 months until I finally got monetized on YouTube. And I thought it was pretty cool because on this very first day, I made about $9. And in about the last 10 days of the month, I made $161 based off of 19,000 views that my channel got. And then just a few weeks later, I got my very first wholesale deal where I made $6,000. This was the start of stage two, and this is where everything changed completely. I went from making that 1K a month to making easily 10K and sometimes even 15K per month. And this is the part of the journey that if I started over, I would do things a little bit differently to try to get here as quickly as possible. So let me lay it out for you so you can do the same. After I got that first wholesale deal, I started to close a new deal about every other month for between $5,000 and $10,000 each. And as I gained more expertise and showed it in my content, people started asking for even deeper help past that $7 resource. And so I had my YouTube content, then my free resource, the $7 product. And on top of that, I introduced my very first cohort offer, which was called the Wholesaling Beginners Bootcamp, which I started selling for $297, but ended up averaging out around $497. This was a 5-day cohort group event where for 1 hour per night, I walked the entire group through how to get started in their wholesale business. And it was a complete success. And it was the first system I ever really had in my business. It's what I now call my offer stacking system because I consider free content an offer. This is the first offer that I made. It's just taking what we know and packaging it in as valuable a way as possible and putting it out into the world. And then on top of that, I stacked more value. So my free resource was slightly more valuable, also free like the content, but this time people exchanged their email address to get that resource. And then on the thank you page of that, they saw the $7 product, which was the first truly paid offering. And then on top of that, also paid was that 5-day Zoom bootcamp. This was the first ever time that I looked at a business as a process where you and the customer find out if you are both right for each other. I used to think about it as you just have to go out and you just have to search for that one right person. And then hopefully they want to work with you. And then you go search for another right person and hopefully they want to work with you. And instead, I think about business completely different today, that the only 3 jobs that any business owner needs to be focused on is first getting noticed by the right type of person that they can help. The second is getting known and building trust with that person. And while they get to know you, you are also getting to know them so that you can create better offers for them. And third, get paid. And that process runs everything that I do, as well as everything that the business owners that I help do as well. If you want to deep dive on that process, there's a link in the top comment where you can go to my free school community and you will have access to our mini course, which will walk you through exactly how the get noticed, get known, get paid process makes life and business a lot easier. So that's exactly what was happening. And it was the simple step-by-step process of free content, lead magnet for email, then starting sales on the thank you page that made all of the difference. Now, shortly after introducing this bootcamp offer, I realized that I needed to do something with all of the email addresses that I was getting from this free lead magnet. So I set up what I now call an automated content system. The first part of the content system is just making content, especially long form content, because that's all YouTube really had 6 years ago. But eventually I started making short form content too. And the next part of the system is taking those lessons and the information that you put into that content and building out an automated email sequence. At this time, mine was just 7 days. So this way, after someone gave me their email, they went into that automated sequence so that even if they didn't take that $7 offer that they saw on the thank you page, I would send them this email right away, and it would include the free thing that they asked for, and it would also include a second chance at that $7 digital product again. And crazily enough, about 30% of the sales of that product came from this email instead of from directly on the thank you page. And so that just tells you the value of giving people another chance to say yes. Then I would have a bunch of remaining emails in this sequence that would send people back to more YouTube content, as well as let them know when the next cohort for that Zoom bootcamp started. Each month between the bootcamp, the wholesale deals, affiliate revenue, and now that I was monetized on YouTube AdSense, I was reaching that $15,000 per month mark consistently. This is also where I learned the value of stacking income streams vertically. Today, this is what I call my revenue recovery system. But at that time, it was literally just making money in more than one way from what I was already doing. I think another popular quote we've all heard about millionaires, they have like 7 streams of income. And we oftentimes think of these streams of income as like horizontal things. So they might have a business in category 1 that makes some money, and then they might reinvest that into a business in another industry that makes some money. And typically we think of these activities as spread out horizontally to reduce risk, but really all it does is reduce focus and make the process of growing these income streams to any significant amount of money really, really tough. And so instead, what I started thinking about was how to stack income streams vertically. It's where you take something that you're already doing and seeing how many ways you can monetize it without extra work. So for example, making YouTube content was the start of my business, because within that get noticed, get known, get paid process, it all starts with someone noticing you, and YouTube was the way that I did that. And we already talked about how I would use those YouTube videos to then make offers to a free resource and then paid products from there. But that wasn't the only way that YouTube made me money. On top of the products, I also had YouTube AdSense, which is what you get paid for having a monetized YouTube channel. And I also had affiliate links in the description of my videos to different tools that I was using and that were helping me, such as PropStream, which was a very early partner of mine, and that will always support them because not only are they an amazing tool, but they're also just amazing people. So I looked at YouTube videos as one thing that I could do that would make me money in a minimum of 3 ways. And as you can imagine, this was really nice. So I enjoyed stage 2 because I had $10,000, $15,000 per month coming in. But I was also very, very burnt out because I was doing everything myself. I was editing content, cold calling for deals, running the boot camp, answering every email and comment, and even physically renovating the properties myself. I thought it was funny because I made this video right here talking about how busy I was and how I was going to take a step back and figure out how to stop working so hard and start enjoying some of the success. And then my very next video posted pretty much went viral, became one of my most successful videos ever. And so I was like, I've got to double down on this. But eventually we reached stage 3. And this stage started because yes, I wanted financial freedom, but I also started to crave time freedom and location freedom. And so it was time to add to the real estate skills that I had developed and actually get business skills as well. Now, like I said at the beginning, I've been to business school. I have 2 degrees from top schools in the country, but there's nothing like doing it for yourself in the real world. And so while a lot of content stayed focused on real estate investing, while I continued to do more deals and I started keeping them for myself as rental properties, like I said, me and my dad and my mom as well got in there and did a lot of the early renovations ourselves. I was also starting to look for bigger deals like the 33 unit complex that I almost bought. But behind the scenes, I was learning how to delegate and build a small team. First with just a virtual assistant and a video editor. And when I tell you it was well worth it, because while it lowered my profit margin, it made life a lot easier, and it also made business easier because I was able to focus on just the things that I was good at, which was building systems, both for content, creating offers, and trying to just deliver products that customers loved and got a ton of value out of. This was around 2022, and I had content dialed in, and I ended up making $149,000 that year, which is about $12,000 a month just from AdSense alone. And you can see that I even took this big break in the middle of the year where I wasn't posting any videos to my own channel, partially because I just wanted to enjoy some of the financial freedom that I'd built and travel. But during this time, I also started building my YouTube agency, because the same way I took my real estate skills and shared them with others, friends and business owners that I knew started asking me how I was using content to grow my business and could I take those skills and help them as well. So I did. I created this whole new arm of my business, which we call Lili Media. And it was an agency where I hired a team of editors and strategists, and I trained them on my systems, and we started serving clients. We literally became like a full-blown media company overnight. And eventually we started charging $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 as a minimum retainer to strategize and edit content for business owners so that they could get more people to notice them and therefore fill up the amount of people that were getting to know them and deciding to work with them. Now, I didn't know it at the time, but I'm so glad that I built this agency business and a team so that the entire system wasn't reliant on me, because this was around the time that we found out my brother was sick. He had cancer, and they didn't even find it because he had any symptoms. He just was at the doctor for an unrelated appointment, and luckily, a very caring and observant doctor told him that she would like him to stay the night and let her run some tests. And that one night turned into me, 2 of my brothers, and my parents moving a few states away to a world-renowned cancer treatment center, where over the course of a few months, he got chemo and transplants and ended up making a full recovery and coming back home with us. But being able to drop everything pretty much and be there with him during that time showed me the value of time freedom and location freedom in addition to financial freedom. And honestly, it moved me away of being so actively involved in my properties and in trying to become this big house flipper, even though at the time I was in conversation with some TV networks about possibly getting my own show to do just that. And instead, stage 3 came about making income based on what I knew and the systems that I could create rather than the time that I spent working. So I stopped wholesaling and renovating new deals, and that lump sum, $10,000, $15,000 that I was making went away. I still had my rental properties, which made a few $100s per door per month, but it was time to replace that income with something that other people could help me fulfill so that I could still have time and location freedom. And I really enjoyed the process of figuring out those new systems. And it was nice to not have to be solo anymore. I had a team that I could work with from wherever my laptop was, and it ended up being just a lot more enjoyable. At this point, not only were people coming to me for specific content help, they were also asking for business help. Things like how to create offers, find your ideal client, run ads, and all this other stuff. And that's what brings us now to stage 4. Real estate has taken a back seat to become more of my passive income, like safety net. The YouTube agency does around $15,000 per month, and the business coaching and mentorship does around $15,000 per month, and things are growing really, really fast. I don't want to claim it just yet, but it looks like we're going to definitely hit the $40,000 or $45,000 per month mark when this month ends in just a couple of days. Now, and on top of that, I still have my vertically stacked income streams from content and affiliate marketing and sponsors, which I pretty much don't even think about. I just count it as icing on the revenue cake. Most of all, this type of business structure gives me the lifestyle freedom that I said I wanted when I started this journey, the time to be with family, travel, and help others do the same. And I knew that I wanted financial freedom when I started this, and I knew I didn't want to do it in secret. I wanted to share the process, the mistakes, the wins along with you guys and bring you with me. But now I also know that it doesn't stop with me. Every business owner that I can help also helps the hundreds or thousands of people in their own audience or client base. And I think that's really a powerful thing, because as cheesy as it sounds, it feels like we're making the world a better place with the value that we provide. And so I thank you for being here. And if you want to take the next step to learn exactly how I build business systems and have me help you build the first 3 business systems to help you get noticed, get known, and get paid in your own business, there's a link in the description to our 3-day business building challenge, which you can probably guess is hosted on Zoom. And I would love to invite you to be a part of the next cohort. I hope that hearing my journey gives you some clarity on how you can go from having no insights or directions and just a dream and knowing where you want to go and build your own path to help you get there. So until next time, thanks for watching.